Hello, folks. I'm here with Luna, and Luna is a well-known YouTuber. She makes videos about Vietnam, socialism, geopolitics, and many international issues. She's also an artist, from what I understand. She does visual art, painting, sewing, and whatnot. And so I figured we would just have an interesting conversation about socialism, about Vietnam, about geopolitics, about the global economy, some recent events as well. So, Luna, why don't you start out by introducing yourself?
Um, Hi everybody. Sorry, EJ is right here, so kind of distracting to me.
Is that loud?
No, I don't hear anything. Can you hear anything? Because he's putting the fan here. Wow, awesome. Thank you. Okay, again. Hi everybody. My name is Luna, and my channel is Luna ơi. Luna it means in Vietnam it's just like hey Luna. So Luna has that meaning. I'm a Vietnamese. I'm living in Vietnamese, and I do many things in my channel, such as just like Caleb just said, I draw, I sew, I do gardening, I cook. I also talk about the socialism in Vietnam, mostly in Vietnam, Vietnamese history and politics, okay, stuff like that.
Okay. Now, how did you come to set up a YouTube channel?
Oh, here, this is a long story, you know. I was the student in the business school, like totally capitalist one in Vietnam. And then I worked as a normal staff for 5 years, and then I met EJ, American Johnson, my partner. And then, we kind of the two leftists finally met each other in this world and find out that this is not what we want. This is not we're so tired for years, and then we made like the decision for life. We both quit our job and then decided to start our own channel. Like EJ has his channel that I am the partner, and I have my own channel that he's the partner, something like that. And yeah, it came from like the tiredness of working in corporations and big companies and deal with all kind of customers and bosses. It's just so frustrating, and I decided to quit. It was hard decision. It was hard.
Now, me, I grew up as, I'm a millennial. I grew up hearing stories from my parents' generation about the Vietnam War. And there's no one my parents' age who didn't know somebody who died in the Vietnam War. I had relatives. I remember I went to the Vietnam Memorial when I was a school student to look and see the name of my cousin who died in Vietnam, and that, the impact on the United States was pretty massive. Obviously, it was far, far, far more massive for the people of Vietnam. Can you talk about how the Vietnam War has affected the country right up until today? What the experience was over there as compared to the way we remember it over here? Can you talk about that to some degree?
Yeah, it's the war with America is like the memory that nobody can forget, nobody can ignore. The affection of that was so much, is so much. So like my grandpa, the father of my father, died in the war in 1968 in the Tet Offensive, if you know about that. So yeah, it affected a lot about my family. And as you know, I don't know, like in the north of Vietnam, from the 1961 in the north of Vietnam, USA started bombers. And that was the year that my mom was born too, so it was really like strong memories to her. She remember that like when since she was a kid, when she worked in the field, the rice field, she had to always pay attention to all kind of noise, such as like a bombing noise or alarm noise, so she can run away as fast as possible. And then the whole village, my whole village, she said that like around our village is like several like holes made by bombs, and right after a bomb was like dropped down there and explode, a team of soldiers will like and villagers will go there and immediately like dig the bomb up, bring them away, and then fill it up and then fix the rice field again. It's really really bad. So and at the same time, since 1961, like at the same time, they use like toxic Agent Orange. You know about it, right? So like for anyone who don't know about this, who doesn't know about this, USA used 80 million liters of toxic in the south of Vietnam. The purpose is to kill our forest and our crops. So like to starve us to death and to like and then like our soldiers cannot hide in the forest anymore because they rather destroy the whole forest to stop the Viet Minh from Viet Cong from hiding. And then in those 80 million liters of toxic, they can like 61% of them is Agent Orange, and Agent Orange like that amount of Agent Orange contain like 366 kilogram of dioxin. Dioxin is until now still the most poisonous substance that humans have ever known of, and it affect like even now the fourth generation of our soldiers. They were still born with the like disability and mental illness because of that Agent Orange. Like those millions of people for 4 generations always been our heavy burden for Vietnam to deal with. And then a few years ago in 2000, I don't remember exactly, 16 or 17 or something like that, we sued America in international court. We collected all the evidence and sued America because like we sued that like they knew what was it, and they knew the consequence of that toxic, but they still did it. They still like made tons of millions of dollars because they sprayed that into Vietnam, and we won. Yes, of course we won. We had enough evidence, but and then like actually, here's the thing: we didn't really ask for compensation for money. We didn't need America to pay any like compensation for us. We just want the world to know about what they did to us. They knew how toxic it was, and they still did it. And then yeah, of course that America didn't give a fuck about it, and then the Western medias barely covered that information. But it was it. And so here's the thing. In the south of Vietnam at that time, you can imagine like this. In the south of Vietnam at that time, they were sprayed toxic. In the north of Vietnam, they bombed us to the Stone Age. And then everything was destroyed, such as my hometown. My hometown is like a neck of Vietnam. And like this side is the ocean, and this side is Laos. Up here is north south, down here is south. So like and there was there's a big river like cut through my neck like this, and then there was only one bridge that connected, and that bridge was the heaviest bombed place in Vietnam because that was the only one way to connect the north and the south, or else they have to go through sea or Laos, right? That they didn't want it. We didn't want it, so we had to go through this part through one bridge, and then yeah, that's why like my hometown was the most bombed place in the most bombed nation, and everything was destroyed, and yeah, we had to rebuild the whole cities in the next 40 years. It was horrible.
Wow. It's like such hypocrisy on the part of so many leftists in the United States who want to be critical of Vietnam and say that the socialism of Vietnam is not good enough. The country's been that destroyed and that bombed and that savagely, attacked, to expect them to just be perfect the day after they win their victory
Yeah.
is such a huge, ridiculous expectation. But one thing that gets really obscured, and I learned this, when I was a university student, but in all of my education, everything I was taught about Vietnam, they always obscure the fact that so many of the Vietnamese fighters were women, that women played such an important role in the military of the National Liberation Front of Vietnam. Can you talk about that?
Oh yeah, as woman was a super strong force, and we even have a quote, Ho Chi Minh quote. He said that, like, when the enemies come to your house, even the woman will stand up and fight. Because here's the thing, you know, we had like thousands of years fighting with China, and then 100 year fighting France, and then the fascist Germany's, and then France again for 9 years, and finally it was America. And then like the fact was this: all of our the most like our men died before that. They became soldiers and they died. So like we lack of men at that time. So that's why women, we had to stand up and fight too. So like we fought in so many ways. It's like you know, like guerrilla style. Like we made traps and then uh we lure them to like small traps to kill the enemies like part by part, because we know that we were too weak to fix them with the one big fight. That's impossible for us to win. And women also we like my mom actually, like they hear the bombing every day, but they still go to the rice field to work because they need to feed just not only themselves but only the soldiers and also the south of Vietnam at that time when they were sprayed the toxic. Like they work so hard to do that. And yeah, it was a big part of our human resources. And also my grandma was, she was born in 1930s. And yeah, of course, she had a lot of memories about. The only one thing is, when I talk to my mom and my grandma, I said is that when I talk about like how did you feel at that time, or like how did you feel? Do you feel like terrible and you cannot continue this life anymore? Yeah, it's obvious, right? And they both told me that like actually they didn't think that much at that time, because like they know that the whole country is burning, the whole country is fighting, and the enemy is right on our land. So they didn't really think about their own pleasure. All they think about is have to do this to help, have to do this to fight. So like they just did it, and then they survived the war. Yeah, something like that.
I know that at one point the United States had actually promised to pay reparations to Vietnam for the bombing, but that has never been fulfilled, despite the fact that
Yeah,
Obama visited and everything. Um,
yeah.
let me also ask you: did the anti-war movement in the United States, the fact that millions of Americans took to the streets and protested against the Vietnam War, were people aware of that in Vietnam? Do people have a strong feeling that that was helpful in securing national liberation? Was there a feeling about that within Vietnam, or was that just kind of in the background? People were focusing on the war.
Well, it always warms my heart when I know that thousands of Americans like fought against that war. Really, it's it makes me feel like at least like somebody listen to us and know what's happening over here. And yeah, and of course at that time a lot of enemies people knew about that, and we even like secretly sent the documents, pictures and videos to those anti-war groups in America, because like I knew that because I watched a documentary about a group of America who like secretly showed those pictures sent by us, and I was really happy. I am now very happy. And when I told my mom and my grandma that like that happened in America, like anti-war protests, they both smiled, you know.
Mm.
They both smiled because of what you did.
No, I'm originally from Ohio in the United States, and I actually
Mm.
grew up about 20, 25 minutes away from a place called Kent State University. And on May 4th, 1970, there was an anti-war demonstration at Kent State University, and the
Oh,
U.S. military opened fire and killed four of the students that were protesting. Um,
oh
I
God.
in the 1990s. But every year on May 4th, we would hear from our teachers, from people in town, that these young students had deserved it. They were disrespecting the country. They were
Oh,
spitting on soldiers, and so I just grew up hearing this mantra of anti-war protesters are bad and all of that. So even on my own political development, I think that the Vietnam War, and hearing about this massacre that had happened not very far from where I grew up at Kent State University, it had a pretty big political impact on me. So, the impact of the Vietnam War. I mean, how many million Vietnamese people were killed as a result of this war? What was the death toll? I've heard different estimates, like 4 million, 5 million.
wait a minute. I have to check
Okay,
because I don't even remember.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'm looking. Okay, we have number now about we have, they only count here we have 849,000 dead soldiers.
Okay.
About 500,000 to 600 like wounded, injured, and then the total since 1945. Okay, we had like 1.1 million martyrs, and then oh my God, it's just so much. It's about 1.5 million, all like soldiers, and then soldiers who died and civilians too.
How many civilians?
It's about 600,000,
Okay.
something
Okay.
like
So
that.
like 1.5 million. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, it's something like that where it's very hard to calculate the total amount of death.
Yeah, it's hard.
Right. And that people are still suffering from these chemicals, from what I understand, right? From the diocin
Oh
and
yeah,
such, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
So, wow. Well, I was curious if you could touch on, you made a very good video about how Vietnam is a socialist country.
Thank you.
And I must tell you that going to the World Festival of Youth and Students in Quito, Ecuador in 2013, I actually had the honor of being able to meet with the Ho Chi Minh Communist Youth Union and attend their events, and hear the presentation on behalf of this organization, and learn a lot about socialism in Vietnam, and talk with the youth delegation that attended that gathering in Quito, Ecuador. It was very educational for me, and I learned a lot about socialism. But I know your video was very long, but can you just kind of concisely tell us why, despite the fact that Vietnam has a stock market, despite the fact that many private corporations do business in Vietnam, Vietnam is still a socialist country. It's still guided by Marxism, Leninism, and Ho Chi Minh thought and such.
Yeah, okay. So at first you have to understand like what does socialism mean to us? Because according to Marx, Lenin, and Ho Chi Minh, socialism is not an end goal. Socialism is a transitional period from capitalism to communism. So, like, it must contain both capitalism and socialism inside of one transitional period. Is that so? Like, if you still think that socialism is like, it must be pure socialism, like 100%, so that it's impossible according to Marx. Okay, I don't know, maybe you have a different definition of socialism, but that's our definition. So like, yeah, so like, and another thing, Vietnam, we have a lot of socialist programs, such as we have rice price stabilization programs, where like we protect the farmers, uh, we protect the farmers who produce rice for us. It's really, really good, and you can watch my videos for that. I explain everything. We also have price stabilization for medicine and for gas, oxide, the basic stuff like that. So that's why they always so cheap in Vietnam and always protect consumers. And we have anti-imperialist program, such as like I haven't made a video about this yet, but it literally means like we try to protect the domestic business compared to the international business, something like that. And then one more thing is that like Marxism, Leninism, and Ho Chi Minh taught, they always been taught since like primary school until college in Vietnam. Like literally everybody that you met in Vietnam now, they were all like officially trained Marxists and Leninists and Ho Chi Minh taught Ho Chi Minh ideology like in the school. So like we talked about that everywhere. And it's a basic, like it became like the basic subjects and essential subjects that they must pass those class if they want to graduate. Another thing is like I don't have to remember. Vietnam, we have been socialist and collectivist since before the word socialist even got invented. It's like something in our spirit. Like it happened since 1,000 years ago, and like we always like care about each other, and we have the tradition of like helping each other, and then put the public benefits over the individual benefits, and it's been like always our tradition. Such as in Vietnam, we have a community gardens. It's something like you see an empty place around your house, and you grow foods there together. Everybody share, and then like it becomes like so normal that like as I said in my video, it's so normal that nobody even questions about it. Like, can I do that here? Can I do this here? And even the government doesn't stop us. Like, okay, they even encourage us to do that.
Well, the World Economic Forum wrote an article, and they are certainly not a socialist or communist voice, but they published an article called Vietnam's Economic Miracle, going on at length about how Vietnam has raised people out of poverty, the amount of infrastructure investment, the amount of effort put into technology. And it really shows, of course, they blame market solutions. But if you read the fine print of the article, it shows that by having state control of the means of production, that really has given Vietnam the cutting edge in moving toward becoming a middle income country. And I was kind of blown away to read that. And a lot about the socialist market economy of Vietnam shows that unlike countries that are truly capitalist, where the corporations just come in and just do whatever they want, it's pretty clear that in Vietnam, the Communist Party has the power, right? The Communist Party controls the economy. There's market sectors, but the Communist Party is in power, and the Communist Party's agenda isn't making profits for capitalists. It's helping the Vietnamese people and getting them closer to communism. And communism is based on vast material abundance. It's upon raising the level of productive forces. And I feel like that has been lost. A lot of American leftists don't get that. They think communism is everyone being poor, but it's somehow equal, right? We just share the poverty, and that's fair. And they kind of misunderstand the materialism that Marx had, that communism is the basis of raising people out of poverty, vast material abundance. But I wanted to ask you about a couple things because, Vietnam and China are both socialist countries, but there has been division between the two countries. There are some disputed islands and all of that. And I feel like, the United States would very much like to see Vietnam and China at each other's throats, not getting along, would like to divide these two socialist countries in Asia. Do you agree with that assessment? And can you talk about Vietnamese and Chinese relations?
The relationship between Vietnam and China is very complicated. It went back into the history of 1,000 years ago. We've been fighting each other like since like 2,000 years ago, something like that, in the Tang Dynasty, way earlier than that. So like we gained independence in the like 2,000 years ago. Yes, we gained independence, and then they conquer us back. And then we became one of their like smaller country, like have to pay huge money every year for 1,000 years. That's 1,000 years living under the Chinese regime. Is horrible. And they even send like thousands of Chinese men down south to Vietnam to marry Vietnamese women and try to erase our culture. But we didn't have our own writing system. We had to use Chinese writing system for 1,000 years actually, and they try to erase as hard as they can our own culture, but it didn't work. And then about 1,000 years ago, we fought back again, and then we gained our independence since then. And then, but like it's like living right next to an eagle, who always looked down to you and wants to own you, something like that. And so the worst thing is happened in like go back to 1945 when we had our communist revolution with Ho Chi Minh. At that time, the fascist Japanese soldiers are officially in Vietnam, and then France always tried to jump back to Vietnam in 1945. At that time, also Chiang Kai-shek's army also want to jump into Vietnam too. With like they claim that they want to help Vietnam to fight against Japan and France. And at that time, Ho Chi Minh had a really tough choice. There were three enemies to choose. Which enemy will you choose to fight? fascist Japan, France, or Chiang Kai-shek's army. And you know what? Ho Chi Minh chose France to fight. So that's why at that time, he allied with France to kick out Japan and Chiang Kai-shek. We literally let France in our country to fight those two enemies. And then it led us like 9 more years to fight against France. So here's the thing. It literally means we rather chose France as our enemy. Like we never want to ally with China, the Chinese army at that time. We never want to ally with them. And move forward in 1979, 4 years after we get our independence with against the war with America. 1979, China, without any information, they invaded the north border of Vietnam. Thousands of soldiers died in the north of Vietnam. That was almost like a secret of a forgotten fight. I don't know why. 1979. Thousands of us died, and then it happened for
Kampuchea War, right?
Yeah, it cannot be Sea War because I don't know why they did it though. They just like suddenly one day they sent like thousands of Chinese soldiers to the border in the north of Vietnam and shot us.
They were supporting Pol Pot in Cambodia, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It was so bad. Like in the south, we were fighting Pol Pot. In the north, China suddenly attacked us. Yeah. And then it happened for a few days, and then right in the morning, our Communist Party was about to like announce the whole country about what's happening with China, and then they were about to appeal the whole country to rise up again to fight. It was gonna become the fight of the whole country. Right at that moment, somehow, China suddenly stopped. So it started like from nowhere, and it's also stopped by nowhere like that.
Yeah, well, one of the arguments that our leaders will give us to say that the Vietnam War was somehow the right thing is they will try to say, well, after the USA withdrew from Vietnam, you had Pol Pot in Cambodia, you had China invading Vietnam, and things got so much worse after the United States withdrew. But
oh God,
the fact that is obscured, though, is that Pol Pot was being covertly supported by the United States. They were giving him weapons and guns, and it's just ignored, the fact that Pol Pot was supported by the United States, to the point that our leaders will sometimes point to Pol Pot as an example of why communism is bad when they were themselves supporting him. Can you talk about, the Kampuchea War, Pol Pot, Cambodia, and all of that? And I mean, can you reflect on that situation? I mean, you opened it up with talking about China's intervention, but can you also talk about Cambodia and such?
Yeah. Wow, it was really bad memories for all of us about Khmer Rouge. So Khmer Rouge attacked Vietnam since like in 3 or 4 years in 1975 to 1978. They just like invaded, like they just attacked the south. Did not invade, but like attacked the south of Vietnam and killed thousands of citizens. Like, I don't know, I should mention about how they killed us or not. It was not just shot and died. They attacked the villagers, and then they used horrible ways to kill our people. It would be a mercy if they shot it by guns. It's so horrible. They use like the torture and kill thousands of us for no reason, and then they left. It happened like that for 3 years, and then our government at that time tried so hard to negotiate with them to try to stop it. They didn't even listen. So that's why in December 1978 and early 1979, Vietnam sent like thousands of volunteer soldiers to the south of Vietnam, to Cambodia, to fight back. And at that time, America, China, and ASEAN countries took that as an excuse to put embargoes on Vietnam terribly, because we fought back. We fought Khmer Rouge. It's so ridiculous. Like, it's so ridiculous, and I still cringe whenever I thought about that. Vietnam was the only one country on earth at that time who fought Khmerus, who
Mm.
helped millions of Cambodian normal people that they were killed and tortured and they were dying. And then we got severe punished for doing that because actually Khmer Rouge was backed by US, by China, by Thailand, and many other countries too. It's so disgusting whenever I thought about that. Khmer Rouge was not just a normal. Pol Pot was not just a normal dictator. Khmer Rouge was not just normal soldiers. They were like mass serial killers with by horrible ways. They brainwashed their soldiers to do that. I know
Mhm.
that a lot of millions of soldiers, like they were so young when they were chosen. You know,
Mhm.
I oh I will do this. You can use it in your video or not. But like this is one of the horrible way that they killed our people. They came to a village. They chose like children, like kids, and they chose a big tree on the village. And then you know what? One person, one Khmer soldier will hold the kid's legs and then hit the kid into the tree until the kid died.
Wow.
That's one of the way they killed. Many other ways too, but
And Pol Pot presented himself as if he was so much more communist or so much more radical than
yeah,
Vietnam, right? But he was an
yeah,
ultra leftist. He did not believe in
yes,
historical progress. He believed
yes.
that Cambodia could have socialism on the basis of an agrarian economy. He was opposed to education and development, and he was being backed by the United States. And it's interesting though because I mean we see a trend of this of like what you call like ultra leftists, right? Forces that purport to be ultra revolutionary, right? And they're so revolutionary, but in reality, they're serving the imperialists, like Trotskyism, for example. I think the teachings of Leon Trotsky and the Trotskyist movements around the world operate in a similar way. They have a very bloodthirsty outlook. They want permanent revolution, and they always end up supporting the imperialists, whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Libya, whether it's in Vietnam or elsewhere, and that there is an attempt by American intelligence agencies to manipulate leftism and to manipulate socialism and communism, and to try and distort these revolutionary ideas to serve the empire, to serve what they're supposedly fighting against. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. I got some comments in my Is Vietnam Socialist video, and many other, and even EJ believe that they were Trotsky, like it really Trotskyist thought, like ultra leftist. And then, you know what? I am so tired of those people. Really?
Me too. Me too.
Jeez, jeez, so freaking tired. It's like they lived in like I don't know how they process the reality. They want everything to be like 100% or else it's 0%. They didn't take a look at reality and what's happening. And at that moment, that was the best choice that we can make. We cannot just like fuck everything and go full communism and then the world will gonna treat us like normal country. It's fucking impossible. Sorry for saying that. But yeah, it's like a I got a really annoying comment in my East Vietnam so this video. They said that like Vietnam could have chose like food communism. We could be like North Korea, blah 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 like that. And then like so because I know that North Korea they were bombed terribly too, and they chose to like close the border and they chose like to uh to to like be alone, to be left alone like that. Vietnam, we couldn't do that, okay? And we didn't want to do that because like we was not just bombed in the Stone Age. We was sprayed like millions of liters of toxic. Like we cannot grow anything, and we've been like we've been having famine since 1945 and 60, 70, something like that. And if we again choose to close our border to build like our perfect societies, millions of us will die because like millions of us will starve to death. It's impossible. And then like they didn't know that. They didn't understand. They couldn't understand that communism, socialism, they all based on materialism.
Yeah.
You have to have a decent infrastructure, education, and economy. Like your people must be like a kind of rich enough and educated enough, and the infrastructure will have to be like enough to build a communism. We cannot just build communism on like scratch like that. It's impossible. Yes, we just killed your own people. We just killed our own people. Something it's
Yeah.
like that. It's so
Well,
disgusting.
let me ask you, I think it's kind of interesting that, there are some things about Vietnam and about other socialist countries that Western leftists would consider to be very conservative. Like the military is a very big part of society, right? There's a lot of, the young people wearing uniforms, a lot of loyalty to the country. And there doesn't seem to be a big emphasis on, gender politics, LGBT, transgenderism and all of that. And in some ways, it seems like the socialism that exists around the world reinforces like the traditional family structure, loyalty to one's community. And can you talk about that? Do you feel like Vietnam is more conservative than Western countries in a social sense?
Actually, I believe that we are way more open than a lot of people in the Western world. Such as I made a video about LGBTQ plus
Mm-hmm.
community in Vietnam. We have a lot of LGBTQ plus celebrities in Vietnam, and they got huge fan, like huge amount of fans all over Vietnam. And then here's the thing, maybe like Vietnamese boomers, like my mom and my dad, they still a little bit like conservative about like the gender roles, and then they still like I don't want my kids to be in the LGBTQ plus community, but like for the young people like me and my age, we're so open about that. It's gonna be fine. So like if I have kids, it's gonna be fine. If they LGBTQ plus, I don't care. I only care if they're happy or not. And then like it's happening like that all over Vietnam, and then we are so open about it, and we even have the 1 month bride protest or something, 1 month bride. So
Wow.
like LGBTQ plus just like walk around and hang around in all over Vietnam and then have fun with the flag, and none of them got harassed, none of them got attacked. There was no violence against them, something like that. And then like and a lot of people, a lot of LGBTQ plus comrades asked that like from Western world, right? Western countries said that would they be safe if they go to Vietnam because they were scared, right? I understand. I always feel like it's totally fine. Maybe Vietnamese people will look at them on the street when they walk on the street, but it's not because of their LGBTQ plus. It's just because they are Westerners. You
Mm.
look different from us and the people. That's why people stare at you, and that's the worst case you can have in Vietnam.
Okay.
Of course, there are some cases that like they got beaten up, but like it mostly happened in the dark place, and then like in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 in the morning, and like they got robbed, and that could happen to anyone, not just LGBTQ plus.
Well, let me ask you on the other hand. We also constantly hear in the United States that the Catholic Church and Christians are persecuted in Vietnam. Can you talk about that? Because that we hear the opposite. On the one hand, Vietnam is so homophobic, and now we hear they're also so anti-Christian. So can you tell us about the situation for Christians in Vietnam?
That's totally BS.
Okay.
It's totally BS. I read a lot about it. Even like now in Human Rights Watch, in the headlines about Vietnam, they still said that like religions are like forbidden or something. It's totally biased because we have millions of churches in Vietnam right now. And every day from this room, I can hear the bell from the church.
Wow.
And then there were millions of members of like millions of Christian in Vietnam. And even when EJ's mom came to Vietnam, to my hometown, we walked freely to a Christian church and we saw people praying there. Dude, it's so funny. You know what? The first time I read Human Rights Watch about Vietnam and religions are forbidden and all kind of horrible stuff, I was like, what the heck? Is this real? Are they talking about my country at all?
Wow. Wow. Well, let me ask you, Vietnam, you do have a centrally planned socialist economy with a huge market sector. what are the goals of the Communist Party for the country in the next 5-10 years? Like, what are you looking to accomplish in terms of economic development? Like, what concrete projects are in the works?
Here, I can see now that like we are building, we are working a lot on infrastructure. We are building new roads, big roads, not enough for like huge trucks and cars. And then we are building like houses and hospitals and schools, so kind of stuff like that. We have really focused building on the infrastructure to prepare for the next stage, communism, because we are working now on to achieve like from capitalism to communism, right? So yeah, I don't know. Let me think. We are focusing on. Oh, here's one thing. We cannot just we cannot forget the pandemic, right? And now we are working a lot on our uh, uh, medical system, something like that. We are working on the test kits, as now we send like millions of test kits to the world. We are working on the vaccine too, and then yeah, for now we are focusing on building infrastructure, building education system and medical system, such as hospitals. A lot about that.
Okay. Now, can you talk about education in Vietnam and some of the efforts by the Communist Party to improve education?
Like education in Vietnam is very affordable about all the kind of schools. So like as for example, my high school, no, my university, the fee for one semester is just $200 for one semester. And my school is the top 10 business school of Vietnam. It's not just a random one in the middle somewhere. It's a top 10 business school in Vietnam, and the fee is just like $200 for a semester. And like, it's just so cheap and so affordable. And then from, I don't know how to explain it to you, but like, it's something that's so obvious in Vietnam that our educational system is really good.
Okay.
Everybody can assess that, and then our illiteracy people is really really low. It's like 95% of Vietnamese people know how to read and write, and then 90% of our people have access to healthcare. They have health insurance, and we are teaching. Oh, we are focusing on teaching English a lot.
Wow.
So like when you go to Vietnam, and then if you talk to like any random like young Vietnamese people, they will speak English really really well. And we are focusing on that because we know that we're gonna need to open more to the world and more of the world to come to us, and then it's very important to our country. Yeah, and then they still teach Marxism, Leninism, and Ho Chi Minh thought everywhere. So it's kind of interesting. You can imagine like this in my business school. In the morning, I went to the business class. They taught us how to exploit people, how to become bosses, how to own your own company. And then in the afternoon, I went to Marxism class where they taught us like how horrible capitalism is and how how it actually works and how horrible it is to exploit the worker. It's like it's really funny when you think about that. I didn't think about that at that time actually.
Well, so now can you also talk about, I want to get back to relations with China. Do you think that Vietnam and China can continue to improve their relationship and get along better? Because I really do fear that the U.S. imperialists will be trying to divide the two countries and trying to play them against each other. And do you think there's hope for good relations between the two countries?
I'm not sure about that yet. I'm not sure because here's one to describe our relationship with China. I think there's like we try to like be friends with them. We try to treat them equally, but like we always are cautious about them. Always like yeah, prepare for the worst to happen, but never hope it to happen. So like it's like the dangerous friend that you have to work with and you have to respect them, but always prepare for the bad things can happen any day, anywhere. And it's hard to tell because like it's very complicated and I don't know how we're gonna deal with that. And yes, I know the USA is gonna try to divide us.
Mhm.
And like yeah, and we so scared that we don't really, we cannot just trust them on everything. We can't because based on what we've been dealing with together and what they are doing now for Vietnam, they still, right at this moment, we are talking about this. They're armed vessels of China now in our East Sea,
Mm.
and they've been like wrecked dozens of our fishing boats.
Mm.
They've been doing that until now, right this moment, maybe. And like that's how we can't trust them. We will be friends with them, we will trade with them, we will share with them, but we will not trust them 100%. It's hard.
Okay, now can you talk about Vietnam's relationship with Cuba and with Venezuela and with North Korea and other socialist countries? Um, yeah.
Yeah, okay. To Cuba has been always our good friend,
Hmm.
really. They help us a lot, even now, like in the American war in the 70s and the 80s, that like they sent thousands of people. Cuba sent thousands of people to help Vietnam to build hospitals, and now even now a lot of hospitals in Vietnam was still like built by Cuban, and then they have really good condition until now, and we are using them. And Cuba always have been our good friend. But here's one sad thing: because of the embargo set by USA for nearly 50 years on Cuba, we could not do much to help them. That's impossible. And another fact is that they stay like so far from us, so it's hard for us to really help them much. But like in our spirit, in our hearts, they always been the good friend. We always love them so much. And about North Korea, in the last 2 or 3 years, our relationship became like better. Like we had like a news that Kim Jong Un now want to learn from Vietnam, to learn
Wow.
from what we did. Actually, like it's really happy. It's really happy. Remember last year or last 2 year when Kim Jong Un met Donald Trump in Vietnam in Hanoi?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they came there. Both they came there, and actually, in those they North Korea took that as a chance to talk a lot to Vietnamese leaders, and then to like discuss about the economic problems, and then to learn about how we did it. So
Yeah, well, I wrote an article at the time that those talks were going on, speculating, because it was very clear that while Donald Trump wanted to establish better relations with North Korea, that there were people in the CIA that were trying to sabotage it. And I actually wrote that, if you read a lot of what was written in American media, in the 1980s, the USA was convinced that when Deng Xiaoping instituted the market reforms in China, it would lead to China overthrowing socialism. And that didn't happen. And they were assuming that when Vietnam had its market reforms, that would lead to the overthrow of socialism, and it didn't happen, right? And that part of the reason that the CIA was trying to sabotage the talks with North Korea was because North Korea wants to open up and wants to have economic development in a market sector. And the Western intelligence agencies used to believe that that would lead to regime change. But they've seen that in Asia that hasn't happened. It has actually strengthened socialism. And they are afraid they don't want to strengthen North Korea because of its history, fighting against the
yeah,
United States, supporting the Black Panthers in the United States. North Korea was very supportive of Black Panthers and Black activists in the United States. And so I was speculating that was why there was a faction that was trying to sabotage those talks. And John Bolton, in particular, the national security advisor to Trump, really seemed to be trying to sabotage. And it worked. I mean, it seems like they've ended at this point. They stalled it. One thing I wanted to end with, my final question to you, and we can go back and forth if you want to say a lot about it, but it's my final major question, is what would you, as someone in a country that has had a socialist revolution, that has successfully, you have a communist party in power, you have, young people organized into, communist organizations, you're building socialism. What would you say to young people in the United States right now who want to turn to socialism as a way to improve things in their country? Because right now with coronavirus, the chaos in the United States, with the fact that, when we're the richest country in the world, we still have, unimproved drinking water in many parts of the country. Our roads are falling apart, and many young people are getting interested in socialism and Marxism, but they're very confused about it, as you are very frustrated in your realization. What would you say to young people in the United States who are turning to socialist ideas? What advice or suggestions or wisdom could you give them as someone who is living in a socialist country, in a country that has broken out of capitalism?
Whew, it's really a big question, Yeah. Um, um, because it's not my answer yet, but you have to understand, I was born in communism. For my whole life I never been struggle with changing my ideology at all. I was born into it, and now I'm still it. And then um, for the American people now having struggle in USA, and then they are now finally interested in socialism and communism. Here's the thing. I am happy to know that, really, because last night me and EJ, we were in a meeting online with dozens of workers from USA, where they are planning for the zero strike upcoming in 1st May. And it's a really good way, because they were being so confused. I know that they've been so confused, because communism and socialism always been they've been taught that communism and socialism is so bad and they are evil, and now they finally suddenly understand it's totally different thing. I really want them to keep their hope, and then learn more about it, read more. Yes, you have to read. Actually, you have to educate yourself. Read more about Marx, read more about Kropotkin, Lenin, and Ho Chi Minh thought, if you can find, and then go and talk to other leftists that you can find. Go to talk to the friends that you can trust, and then you can go and talk to us, talk to me, talk to Caleb, talk to you, because communism is all about thousands and millions of individuals going together. You cannot do anything alone. You should not do anything alone, actually, during this pandemic. Go talk to us, educate yourself, keep your hope, keep your warm heart, care about other people, and zero strike is coming in May 1st, and thousands of people are already planning about it. You can come and join us. I will send you the email, the Gmail, and the website. You can put it in later, okay? I don't remember exactly the name, so I don't want to confuse people. But come to us. This is the chance for you to understand more. Talk to us. Our Zero Strike email are receiving hundreds of emails every day from people like you, the confused workers. You want to change, but you don't know how to do it. And it's happening right now. And we would be so happy to have you in our movement. It's Rent Zero Strike, is rent strike, is a healthcare strike, all kinds of stuff like that. And you can be a part of this. And this is a chance for you to learn more. And I am so happy. I am so happy to know that there are more and more people in USA and in many other countries in the world, especially in the Western countries, know more about socialism and communism and start thinking about it in a better way.
Very good. Well, great. It was really great to talk to you. I know it's very early over there, so thank you for taking the time to come on and spend your morning with us. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure that a lot of people will really enjoy this video, will really learn from it. I will link your channel below, and so they'll become your subscribers. Thank you very much. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this interview. So thank you very much, and I wish you nothing but success. And I think it's really great that you're doing this video and speaking about socialism in a way that is really genuine and real when it comes to Vietnam, but very unfamiliar to Western audiences. And I really appreciate the work that you are doing. And I can assure you it's having a very big impact. So thank you very much.
I am very happy to have a chance to talk to you and your audience too. And I am so happy to finally there are people care about us and look at us in maybe the closest to the fact to what's really happening in Vietnam. And I am very happy to have you to in my channels to know to talk to you to share my knowledge and my experience to you. I should be the one who's thankful here. So yeah, so happy to have me here.
Well, thank you very much.
Bye bye.